permission from the Sangha and from the lay people gathered here to say a few words to open the winter retreat. It's December 9th, 2018. And this will be the opening of the winter retreat. So I'll talk a little bit about the schedule and a few words about the time of winter retreat. So, winter retreat is a very precious time, a special time for us, for our community. And the whole reason Longpo Pasano called me back here early, I was supposed to be in Thailand, or I had asked permission to be in Thailand for 2 years. And he called me back after 1 year and 6 months because he was going to be away. So wanting me to come back and help to open the winter retreat. Because we give great importance to this time. We don't just hold it casually, but it's quite a strong period of time and is very helpful for our practice and training, Dhamma Vinaya. And this is what we come to ordain for. So the group practice, we'll start out with a period of group practice morning and afternoon, as we normally do during winter retreat. And if we make use of the period of group practice, then we get the benefit from it. So the first period we start out with 5 a.m. morning puja, as we normally do. And then the 6:30 a.m. chores, 7 a.m. breakfast. At 8:15, have a Dhamma reading. And then 9 a.m. to 10:30 is 2 periods of 45-minute sessions of meditation. That's sitting and or walking meditation. We have the meal. Come back at 1:30 p.m. for the afternoon session. And that's 1:30 p.m. to 5:15 p.m. That's a sitting and walking meditation. During this period, we can a bell will be rung every 45-minute period at the end of the meditation period. And we can have the option to sit and then alternate sitting and walking. Some people will feel inclined to do that. Or if the sitting is going well, we can continue sitting into the next 45-minute session, and so on, sitting as long as we like, or using the walking meditation as long as we like, more than one session. So it's not that we have to sit, walk, but it can just be longer sitting, longer walking. It's really up to the individual. And 5:15, we'll have tea, so moving the tea time from 5:30 to 5:15. 7 p.m., evening puja as normal. That's the general schedule, changing a little bit on Sunday. On the Wan Prat, on the lunar observance days, we won't have the morning and afternoon group sitting and walking. And we also give importance to noble silence during this time. When Lungpo Cha, during the Vasa period, when they would go into retreat at Wat Nong Papong, he would institute what's called the Muka Wat, the no speech practice. So it was held a bit stronger than we hold the noble silence here. Cha just said no talking. So, and then he would say, if you need to talk, you can come talk to me. And of course, everybody's terrified of the Kruba Ajahn. For here, we don't hold it that strictly. We don't say no talking, but just less talking. That's kind of a realistic goal. And if there's one is struggling, or there's an issue, or even a Dhamma issue that comes up, you're welcome to talk to me, but also talk to anyone you trust. So if you have a friend, you can talk to Ajahn Sek, practice your Thai. He'll always be happy to talk to you, or try to talk to you. And in this period before Longpo Pasano comes back, you can talk to Ajahn Sek, you can talk to myself, you can talk to Tan Nisabo, maybe. Pesalo, maybe, but still, respecting the space, developing respect for meditation. So if somebody's meditating, to be quiet around them. I was visiting Lumpur Ban just before I came back here, and it was at one of his branch monasteries, so it's a very quiet little monastery near Khao Yai National Park. And usually there's only 4 or 5 monks living there, but Lumpur Ban will go there and oversee a building project from time to time, or give encouragement to the community there. And one of the other monks was showing us around the monastery. And there was a group of 9 of us from Wat Nanachat, and then this monk, Kruba Non, he was showing us around the monastery a little bit and some of the kutis. And we came across one kuti, and as we do, we're kind of chatting a little bit with one another. Oh yeah, this is really clean. Oh, look how they sweep the place. It's amazing. Kind of chatting a little bit amongst ourselves, and then we come to this one kuti, and there's a monk doing walking meditation, and Kruba Non is just, okay, go back. So you just don't approach the kuti. That's just a very, very strongly held standard in Lumpur Ban's monasteries. It was very inspiring to see. So respect for meditators, this is important. We see somebody doing walking meditation, so if we're having a chat with somebody, to move somewhere else, talk somewhere else, to respect the quiet where that person's doing walking meditation, or if somebody's sitting in the hall, to respect the space, respect the quiet, because there's somebody sitting. And this is a good time we can really dive into our meditation practice. So we have that opportunity now. The Winter Retreat crew is here to look after us. And that's anumodana. That's anumodana to them. That's great merit to look after the monastic community, and that opens up the time for us to dive into our practice. Some monks and novices during this time will take on various practices, whether it's food practices, getting inspired to take on the Dhutanga practices, eating at one sitting. I know there's some people doing that already. And even the only eating out of the bowl practice, very, very good practice. I really encourage that. The eating at one sitting practice, that means one doesn't take the breakfast, one eats only at one sitting, and then once one gets up, then that's it for the meal. And then only out of the bowl practice, that means the soup goes into the bowl, the ice cream goes into the bowl. It's actually allowable to take on the one bowl practice and have like a drink off to the side, but the more strict version is that even the drinks go into the bowl. But you can still technically be a only bowl eater and still have a drink off to the side. I heard a story about in Luangpo Cha's heyday when he was still full of fire and pretty young in early days of Wat Pah Pong, and all the monks there were kind of like doing this, or a lot of the monks, I won't say all the monks, but a lot of them were doing this only eating out of the bowl practice, and it's kind of almost like a competition to see who could make their food the least appealing. And I think Ajahn Ruangrit is one of Ajahn Amaro's early teachers, got the award for that practice. And each day he would open a Coke and pour it in his bowl on top of all of his food. And make it really kind of look like it's sort of already in your stomach, bubbling away. So anyway, these practices are good to take on during the winter retreat or during any retreat period. Some people might be doing sitter's practice. This is also one. And just as a note, if anybody's taking on any of these practices, just to drop me a note or let me know about it. That way we know, okay, that monk didn't show up. Okay, well, we know he's doing sitter's practice, so maybe he passed out or something. Or if someone's fasting, it's good to know if people are if some people find fasting useful. So it's good to know who the fasters are, and then we know, okay, they didn't show up, they're fasting today. The open air dwellers practice. Technically, if you're in a glot or a tent, according to Ajahn Jeff, then you're still holding to this practice. So I know at least one monk here right now who's living the open air dwellers practice, even in this cold, rainy weather. So these two tangas are good. They're for the Buddha said they're for shaking off the defilements or keeping an edge to the practice. but they're optional. So it's nobody's forced to keep them, but there's the option or the opportunity to keep them. And this is this winter retreat time for those of us who have come to ordain, and this is it. This is the time. This is what we live for. So just to give some words of encouragement to really go for it, like Ajahn Naniko was saying, even though, Nibbana might seem far away, but we have to keep the goal of Nibbana in mind as a possibility, especially during this winter retreat time. So a good way to hold it is not to think about, let's just, get it over with, but more just to focus on the present, forget about time, and just bury oneself in the practice. Really, really just get into the practice. If study is our thing, then just really dive into the study. Study the suttas, burn through the suttas, read all the suttas, get one's mind around the suttas, recite the suttas. If chanting is one's thing, then do a lot of chanting at the kuti. Get into the chanting, do paritta chanting at the kuti. Memorize all the parittas if that's your inclination. If meditation's your thing, just go for it. Just sitting meditation late into the night. Make the mind bright. Forget about time. Get to the akaliko, the timeless. If walking meditation's your thing, just really get into the walking meditation. Really go for it. That's one. I'm not personally much of a meditator, but one of the positive effects I saw from meditating with Ajahn Achalo in Bodh Gaya was, and I can even see that now, I don't think about time as much. And each day is really, really full, really long. Just don't think about time as much. So whatever practice we're taking on, whatever practice we're doing, just to fully take it on. If asubha kamatana is our thing, contemplation of the unattractive nature of the body, or like marananusati, the contemplation of death, if we do either of those practices, then to really dive into it, like Luang Cha would talk about, like doing the asubha during walking meditation, the practice of 32 parts of the body, and then each part you get to one end of the walking meditation path, and you like toss that part onto that end of the path, and then you walk to the other end and you toss the next part onto the next end of the walking meditation path. So then you start to, if you have a visual mind, then we can visualize like these piles at the two ends of the walking meditation path. So like, you take your heart and toss your heart onto one end. Imagine it like rolling around in the dirt and dust there, and take your liver and toss it onto the other end, and take your intestines and toss them onto the other end. And get really visual about these different organs that are inside of our body, and imagine them just sitting in the dirt on the walking meditation path. I was sometimes like with Wat Nanachat and Wat Nong Papong, they're 5 miles apart, and there's like a back road you can walk through to. Like sometimes we would just walk between the two monasteries. I remember one time I was walking from Wat Nong Papong to Wat Nanachat, and there was like, just in the middle of the road is a dirt road, just like an entire skin of a cow. Just, I don't know like what it was doing there. Maybe it like fell off some guy's tractor or something. But it was just skin from an entire cow. And it was just like laying in the dirt and covered in dirt. And there was like flies buzzing around it, and it was really disgusting. And so it's kind of like that, like you just imagine your skin just in the dirt. And that's not just for overcoming lust, and not just for seeing the body as unattractive, but it's also for not self, for seeing not self. Like a similar thing is apparently Lumpur Tate was stuck in really deep samadhi for like 20 years, and he like couldn't get out of it because it's so pleasant, so blissful. And Ajahn Mun was kind of trying to sort of break him out of it, and he's like, "You should do a supa." And Ajahn Tate was kind of like, "Well, I don't have any lust. Like, why do you want me to do a supa?" So he's just absorbed into his samadhi all the time. And Ajahn Mun said, "No, you should do a supa. I don't care if you don't have any lust. It's not about that." And Ajahn Tate's kind of like, "What is he talking about?" But he started, because Ajahn Mun is his teacher, he started doing it, and that propelled him to a breakthrough, which broke him out of his being stuck in samadhi. And broke him through to not self through doing the asubha practice. That's not to say that being stuck in samadhi is a bad thing. If some of us could get stuck in samadhi, that would be really great. It's one thing that I'll talk about Lumpur Ban's monastery again, is because of the leadership of Lumpur Ban and his own power and his own barami, a lot of the monks there are at these various stages of the practice that we all dream about and talk about, that are in the suttas. And I heard of my friend Ajahn Bodhisaro. He went to live there one time, and he said there was one of the monks who was stuck in samadhi when he was there. This is maybe 8 or 10 years ago. And so this particular monk, he would go about his duties, but as soon as he didn't have anything to do, he would automatically go back into samadhi. So he's literally just sitting all day, like, 12 hours at a stretch. And, just imagine if this is not beyond the realm of possibility for us, this kind of thing. Once the mind starts to enjoy the meditation and starts to get into that timeless state and feel the joy and the rapture of the meditation, then it is possible to get stuck in samadhi, And even though that's perhaps a hindrance further along the path, I mean, it's still not a bad thing. The Buddha said you're making incredibly good karma when you're stuck in samadhi. There's the 5 heinous crimes. The anantariya kamas were killing one's mother, killing one's father, killing an arhat, shedding the blood of a Buddha, and creating a split in the Sangha. Those are the hell-productive karma, whereas if you were to commit one of those actions, and then no matter how much good you do after that, you're still destined for an unfortunate rebirth at the end of this life. There's a flip side to that, though, the heavy good karma, which is, the Buddha talks about as the 4 jhanas, is that in terms of good karma. So the good karma one creates from being in these states of samadhi is heaven generative karma. So not a bad thing. If somebody here gets stuck in samadhi, that would be really great. Then it's like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Now we have something to talk about. we kind of have to get over these hurdles first. So we have the virtue, we have the sila, we have the precepts. We're already in the monastery, and we have the opportunity to really get into the practice and become a part of what the suttas are talking about and what the Kruba Ajahns are all talking about. And we're all we're in this together. And that's what noble silence is all about, really. It's not like we don't have any interaction. It's not like we don't have any relationship with each other, but a different type of relationship is built up where we're developing a sense that we're all practicing together with one united purpose to further ourselves along the path and build up our barami. And this is like when I was meditating with Ajahn Achalo in Bodh Gaya, and we're just sitting right next to each other all day long. We're not interacting with each other, or very little. And through that, just sitting next to each other, there's a very strong sense of camaraderie, a very strong bond built up. Almost like a sense of like soldiers going into battle together and fighting the enemy together. Because in a sense, when we're all practicing together, by the act of practicing, we're looking out for each other, setting the example for each other. I think that's one thing that Ajahn Naniko was also saying when he was talking to us, was by practicing, you're setting a good example for each other. And acknowledging it is a struggle. Winter retreat is some people who are already well inclined towards meditation and towards not talking very much will find it very, very enjoyable, very easy. Or maybe not easy, but at least we can do it. But if we're not inclined in that way, it can be a difficult period of time. It can be a real struggle. And that's okay too. That's good to see. That's why we're not in winter retreat all year long. But we have this period of winter retreat, we have a period of more interaction, more work and activity. If we need some activity, there are things we can do as well. Like repetitive activities like crochet. Some people might be doing hand sewing, although I think robe making in general isn't encouraged during the winter retreat. So we do what we can, just to further our practice and to encourage each other to have goodwill for each other through doing our practice. We have goodwill for ourselves, we have goodwill for each other. There's this poem that Longpo Man wrote, the liberation from the khandhas. It's super interesting. The first line in the poem is, "There once was a man who loved himself. And then because he loved himself, he wanted to develop the Noble Eightfold Path, the practice." It's really interesting. Is a lot of times we think we don't have metta for ourselves, but just we have some metta for ourselves just by the very fact that we're here and wanting to practice. So sometimes, we need to tap into these resources that we don't realize we have, but we already have. It's like we already have some goodwill for ourselves. We already have some wisdom. We already have the precepts. And we already have some idea, some ability to meditate. So we have some of these faculties already. We have faith. If we didn't have faith, we wouldn't be here. If we didn't have energy or a sense of effort, we wouldn't be able to make it to the morning puja every day. We wouldn't be able to make it to the sitting sessions. We wouldn't be able to do these wanpra all-night sits. If we didn't have mindfulness, we wouldn't be able to have right speech. We wouldn't be able to get along with each other. We wouldn't be able to keep the precepts if we didn't have mindfulness. If we didn't have at least some samadhi, the life here wouldn't be very enjoyable. If we didn't have at least some panya, some wisdom, also it'd be difficult to get along with each other, difficult to see our own mind. So these 5 faculties, faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, wisdom, we already have them to some extent. Perhaps they're not anywhere near the Bodhisattva when he was practicing to become the Buddha. He had these 5 faculties in full. But this is a time we can develop and strengthen them. If the samadhi gets a bit deeper, the faith gets stronger. Once the mindfulness gets better, that increases the samadhi and the panya. Once our faith gets stronger, we want to naturally put more energy into the practice. So it's a natural progression based on these 5 faculties. So just some encouragement just to go for it, but also not to hold it in too heavy of a way. If things are getting tense, it's always okay to ease off a little bit. But if things are going well, it's also okay to go for it, go deeper. And it's not really that long of a period of time. Before we know it, the winter retreat will be a memory. I remember being in the last vasa where I was in retreat for 3 months, and when I'm in it seemed like such a long time. But then when it's over, it's just, where did it go? Where did the time go? So, precious opportunity we have here if we make use of it, and we can all support each other in a practice. That's about all I can say, I think, as an introduction to going into the winter retreat. We have the Wanpra practice this evening, but then we have day after Wanpra, so technically our full schedule will start on the 11th. And I also wanted to say that if anybody needs to make phone calls or check email one last time, I spoke with Tanjaguro. We'll leave the computers available till tea time tomorrow, so people can use the morning and afternoon if they want to do any last minute things, and then we'll be shutting the computers down. I think the Dhammatron will still be available for people to put talks on their MP3 players. Yeah, that's all. We can undo our moorings and and set sail into the winter retreat. It's a very good opportunity, so I'll leave it at that for this evening. Okay, so lunar observance night. We can do sitting and walking meditation. Please enter and exit on the half hours. It's 9:45 right now. Night and morning chanting at